In this video, I would like to go over some advanced networking setup for Windows 10. Now, this isn't involving a server as such, but there will be one machine that will be serving files. And essentially, I have three virtual machines set up here. This red one, the red backdrop that we'll use as the server, and there's a green and a blue representing two other users. Okay. So these are all Windows 10 Pro installations, right? And well, let's just get started and we'll start going through the steps of getting things working so that the different users have different levels of access, they have different folders they can and cannot get into, that kind of thing. So this isn't a totally simple network sharing scenario, which I've done in another video, where anyone on the network is going to have access to all the shared files, right? This is more particular where you need to have, say, a particular folder for accounting that nobody else but your accountant can get into, that kind of thing, right? So using the red computer here as the server, let's make sure that it has a proper name on the network. So to do that, we're going to click on the Start button, and we're going to start typing in Control for Control Panel. And you'll see that as an option here. Let's go to the Control Panel then, and since we're here, just right-click and pin the Control Panel to the taskbar. That way we can get back into it nice and fast later, because we'll probably be in here a few times, right? I'm going to expand this, and we're going to go into, let's make sure you've got small icon selected next to View By, right? So that we're looking at the same kind of a setup here. And then go into System. Okay, and once you click on System, you're going to see some information about your computer. The Windows Edition here, as I said, it's Windows 10 Pro, right? Gives amount of memory, etc. And here, critically, what we're looking at is the computer name right now is Windows 10 Pro 001. So the red, green, blue bit at the moment, they're just 001, 002, 003. But what I wanted to do was show you how to change the computer name, because often this is just some awful random thing that gets assigned when you install Windows. If you see that kind of thing, you'll know exactly what I mean. And to change that, let's go ahead on the left-hand side and click on Advanced System Settings. Okay, this will bring up the Systems Property window, and on the far left, the tab at the top, Computer Name. We want to click there, and then the bottom right or near there, the Change button. So we're going to click there, and let's just do it really simple and just call this Server, right? And that'll make it nice and easy to remember, and will indicate its role on the network, right? You can of course name it anything you want, but we're going to go here with server at this end. I'm going to click OK, and then I should get a warning popping up about having to restart. There it is. We'll click OK to that, and then when we click close on that window, we'll get the option to restart. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. So that computer's restarting. Let's move over to the green computer. So at the moment, all of these computers have the same username and password, right? The username is owner and the password is what it is. So we don't want that. That's handy if you're doing sort of the open network idea where everybody is going to have access to the same files, right? And we want to not have that happening in this case. So each computer will then need its own specific username and password, right? So let's go again into the Start button here, and we're going to click on Settings, the gear icon, just two up from the bottom, and then we're going to go into Accounts. All right. So here we have the name that I mentioned, owner, and it's an administrator. Okay, and what we want to do is click on Family and Other Users on the left-hand side, and we want to click Add Someone Else to this PC. All right, so this comes up and immediately wants you to set up a Microsoft account that you can use to log into the computer. So in this scenario that I'm setting up, the network will be using local accounts, right? It's simpler that way for many reasons, and also, for privacy concerns, etc. You don't necessarily need Microsoft knowing every time you log into your computer. Anyway, let's go ahead and click on I don't have this person's sign-in information. Okay, and then here's the critical link that we were needing to get to: add a user without a Microsoft account. Okay, now so this will create a local user on the PC. And let's just go ahead and make a user named John, and we'll put in a password for John here. And we're going to have to re-enter it. And of course, here we have our painful security questions. And we will go ahead and fill in those. All right. So now we've created the John account, and if we click on it here, it will be shown here under Add Someone Else to this PC. We'll see that we have the option to change the account type. So I'm going to assume here that John, on his own computer, you will want him to be an administrator. You don't have to put that in. If you have another administrator account, you can leave it at that. But I'm going to show you how to do that. It makes it easier for John to install things, etc. We're going to assume that John is a trusted employee with admin rights to his own computer there. So let's go ahead and click OK to that. And we've set up John. All right. Now let's go to the blue computer, and we'll do the similar thing this time for Mary. Okay. So we're going to click on Settings again, Accounts, Family and Other Users, add someone else to this PC. I don't have this person's sign-in info, add a user without a Microsoft account, and then put in Mary, and then her password. And of course, Mary's security questions. Obviously, this is all spoofy stuff, but just for demonstration purposes, right? So here we go. So again, I'm going to click on Mary, and on her computer, make her an administrator. And I say on her computer because on the server, we will not make her an administrator, or John, right? This will be part of the limiting factor. Let's go ahead and click OK. All right. So now John and Mary are added. Let's switch back to John's bit here. And our server has rebooted, and we'll just confirm. We made that icon. We'll go into the control panel, go into System. This should have restarted with the new name, and we do have server as the computer name. So something I'm going to do off video is on the other two computers, I'm going to restart those computers and log in as John and Mary so that they're logged into the correct user accounts and ready to network. So that's something that you would have to do as well. If you have created a new user, you're going to restart the machine and log in as that new user so that you can get things rolling. And I guess one note I would also make is that, say, if you just wanted to change the username So, you know, if you edit your username, initially those two computers were under the owner name, right? I created a new account for a good reason, which is that there are times when, for whatever reason, historically with Windows, I'm not sure how much of an issue this is with Windows 10, but I've seen it enough to be wary of it. If you simply change a username and then give it add a password, right? So if I changed owner to John, right? Then later when we're doing authorizations across the network, what can happen is uh, Windows will insist on the original name being used for the authorization. So um, if you change a username from say owner to John and you are trying to log in as John and giving the password and it's not working, try logging in as owner uh, with John's password and that may work. So it's just a little weird bug that I've run across all too many times, and that's why I've created those new accounts. So another thing that I should mention is if we go back into advanced system settings here and back into computer name, so we've called this server, but I should have mentioned that each computer should be on the same work group. Now, default work group is just work group, but if you have something else on any of the computers, just try and synchronize them all up so they're all on the same work group, and that will make things much easier and more stable. All right. Okay, so let's get started. We're going to tweak some settings here on the server for networking. So we're going to go back into the control panel. We're going to go to the Network and Sharing Center. All right, and we're going to click on Change Advanced Sharing Settings. Okay, so under the private profile, and you should have, if we go back a moment here, you should have it set on a private network, right? If it's not, if it's set to public, you need to set that to private. But let's go, assuming that is true, let's go in here and under private, right, we're going to make sure that turn on network discovery is selected, and your choice, turn on automatic setup of network connected devices. You can check that or not. That won't affect our file sharing bit here. And here under file and printer sharing, we want to turn on file and printer sharing, right? And then under all networks, we have some choices here. So under public folder sharing, it tells you when public folder sharing is on, people on the network, including home group members, can access files in the public folders. So what that means is that aside from the folders that we're going to share specifically, if you turn that on, then the public folders on your server will be available to anybody on the network. In the scenario we're building where we're trying to limit access, I would leave that off, right? But you're welcome to turn it on if you so choose. And here we have under file sharing connections to use 128-bit encryption, which is the recommended level. If you're going to be networking older machines, you may need to enable 40 or 56-bit encryption. But since these are all modern machines, let's leave it at 128. And then our final area of concern here, password protected sharing. We definitely want this turned on because we're going to be using the user accounts to password protect the network folders, right? So let's go ahead and click on Save Changes. Okay, so now this computer should be set up correctly for the kind of sharing that we want to do. So I'm going to close off the control panel, and then the next step is, because we want to use the usernames and passwords as the validation of things, we need to add John and Mary to this server computer as local users with the same username and password that they have on the other machine, right? So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to click on Start, go into Settings. This part should be familiar to you now. And we're going to go to Accounts, Family and Other Users. Add someone else to this PC. I don't have this person's sign-in info. Add a user without a Microsoft account. And then here we're going to go ahead and put in John again. Same password, remember. And then, of course, this painful process here. And we're actually going to leave this, like if we go into change account type, he's a standard user. We're going to leave him as a standard user here, which we don't want to give John admin access to the server, right? So, you know, if the server was rebooted and he went to log in or and he had admin access, he could do anything on the server, right? Including changing permissions, etc., for what he has access to. So that's not something to do on this side, right? And then, of course, we're going to go ahead and add in Mary again. So once again, quickly adding her. All right. So, and again, we're going to leave Mary as a local account. So they're both set up as users, which makes it easy to then give them specific permissions, right? So let's start doing that bit. So let's go to File Explorer, right? We'll maximize that, and we'll click on this PC on the left. And here we have local disk C, which is generally speaking the default drive for a Windows installation, right? You may have a data drive where you want to do this kind of thing, and what I'm about to show you can be done with any folder, set of folders, but let's do a typical scenario here. So we're going to go into drive C, we're going to go to the users folder, and as I mentioned originally, all these were under owner as the username, so owner is the folder we want to go into. And just to mention, if you're as I mentioned before, in terms of usernames changing and then needing to know the original name sometimes for authentication, if you run into that scenario and you don't know the original name, it will be the folder name, because this does not change. If I changed this username from owner to Bob, this folder would not change to Bob. It will stay owner. So you can always go into, you know, the equivalent of C and users and find the folder, the original folder name, and that will be the username that is required in those strange situations. But let's go ahead and jump in there. We go into owner and we have our documents folder here, right? So if I go in there, I really don't have any documents on these virtual machines, but we'll build a few. But let's go back up to this level, and we're going to share this documents folder, okay? So let's right click on the folder, and we're going to go to properties, we'll go to sharing, and click on advanced sharing. We're going to click share this folder, and documents is a fine name for the share name, but if depending on the folder that you have, you may want to shorten it or what have you. And that's the network name that you'll need when accessing the folder, right? But we'll keep this as documents, and the next thing to do is click on permissions. So by default, they have everyone as able to read. Now in another video where I'm doing a more open sharing scenario, we would click here, say allow, full control, everything would be checked, and then we would be giving everyone access, full access to the folder, right? So, but we don't want that here. We're going to actually remove everyone, the everyone group. And right now it's going to say, because there's nothing left, no groups or users have permission to access this object, right? So now we're going to add, right? And that brings us into our select users or groups bit here. Now we know the names, right? So we can say John, right? And click OK. And we've added John, right? And let's say give John full control of the contents in this folder, right? And we're going to also add Mary, right? So we're going to click on Mary and click OK and give full control to Mary. Now, another important thing to do is because sometimes as an admin, you need to access files through the network, not necessarily just through the the regular computer folders bit. So you want to also add administrators, right? And give them full control, right? But remembering that John and Mary are not administrators. Okay, so now we can click OK here and OK there. Now that's the sharing tab, right? We've just shared this and given the sharing permissions there. But there's a second tab where we have to do a very similar thing. So we're going to click on the security tab, right? And here we have, I guess what we'd call the local file level permissions, but we also have to set these properly, right? So it already has system owner, which is the default administrator for this computer, and administrators in general, which we already have. But we want to go ahead here and say edit, right? And we want to add, and again, we're going to say John, right? And make sure John is selected here and give him full control again. And then Mary, click OK, make sure Mary is selected, give her full control, and click OK. Now we get this error here. An error occurred while applying security information to see users, owners, documents, My Music. Don't worry about that, right? This My Music folder is different than the music folder that we see here, right? It doesn't apply because the thing is under this documents we have I guess what you'd call you know what, I'm not sure what to call them, but they're kind of fake links because historically My Music in like Windows XP, etc., was where music was stored. So they have sort of a shortcut, a system shortcut. So any program that tries to access documents My Music will be thrown over to the music folder, which is now outside of documents, right? And because it's not a real folder, you can't apply the same kind of security information to it. So don't worry about those errors. Click continue. It's the same thing. My pictures is not pictures here, right? Just click continue. My videos, same thing. Don't worry about those errors, okay? And then now we can click close. And let's jump in here and say create a new text document. I'm just going to call it root is here, right? So that we have something to look at. And now we can actually go to the other machines and test that connection, right? So here is John's machine. If I go to his file explorer, okay, let's maximize that. And just in the address bar here, if you put 2 backslashes, whoa, I'm on some kind of weird keyboard thing. One sec while I fix that. Okay, so that's fixed. You're going to put double slash, right? And then double backslash, I should say. Then let's type in server, which is in my case, the network name for the server, right? But whatever name that you've chosen, you're going to put that in there instead, right? And then just hit enter, and you should see that shared folder that we've shared for John and Mary. And if we, double click on this folder, then we can see root is here. That's the text document that I put in there. And I can click on view file name extensions, right? So I can see the extension. I prefer that. And let's test that with Mary as well. So let's go ahead and go into File Explorer, double backslash, server, hit enter, documents, root is here, and of course I like this a little bit of seeing the extensions. So our basic sharing is done, but as promised, I wanted to show you how to limit access in different scenarios, right? So I have given them both access to this documents folder. Let's go back to the server level, right? So now we're back on the server, and I am going to create a new folder, and we'll call this one Mary Only, okay? And we will call another folder John Only, all right? And we will create another one called Both, right? Now, under Both, let's just add a little text file so we can see if we get in there. There's the Both root, right? And then John Only, and we'll create a text document for John, and under Mary Only, of course, for Mary, right? So here's where it gets a little bit fancier, right? For Both, we don't have to do anything because the permissions for documents will cascade down into the Both folder. So that's important to remember, so that since we've given them access, both of them full access to the documents folder, by default, any additional folder or file that we put into that folder, they will have full access to, which of course is great and handy because you don't want to have to be specifying permissions every time a folder or a file is created. But of course, we have the scenario where there are some things that we only want John to see and some things only Mary. So let's start with John. We'll right click and click on properties. And here we'll go to security, and we're going to click on advanced, right? The first thing we're going to do is disable inheritance, because it's inheritance that will give John and Mary full access to this folder. So we click on disable inheritance, and then we get this nice prompt here. What would you like to do with the current inherited permissions? So we could remove all, which will blank out this whole scenario here, or we can convert the inherited permissions into explicit permissions on this object. Preferentially, we want to do that because it'll be less work for us, assuming that there's a fair match between the current list and what we want. And there is, because what we really want to do is remove Mary here, right? So let's go ahead and convert, right? So we have now converted that, and we can then click on Mary and remove her. Okay, so now only John has access to this folder other than the system, the owner, which is the admin for this computer, right? And general administrators if any others are added, right? So now we can click OK to apply that, and OK to apply that. And then similarly, we go to Mary's folder, right click, properties, into security, right? And we want to click on advanced. disable inheritance, convert inherited permissions, right? And because it's Mary's folder, now we want to remove John. And of course, if you have, say, an accountant and you've got 7 other people that you've given access to, a general access like to the documents folder, you're going to have to remove all those 7 people and just have your accountant have that permission, right? So click OK, click OK again, and let's give that a test. So I'm going to click on, this is now John's computer. We can check both. John has access to what both have access to, of course. So John only, perfect, right? Now here he should be stopped, and that's what happens. So it's Mary only, Windows cannot access, you do not have permission to access, server documents Mary only. Contact your network administrator to request access. Well, John, sorry, that's not going to be allowed. So John is blocked, right? Now, if we switch over to Mary's computer, which we're now on, right? Of course, Mary should have access to both, which she does, right? She has access to Mary's documents naturally. And then John, this should block, and it is blocked, right? So as you can see, by, let's switch back to the server here, by creating a general folder that you give them both full access to, you can give them general access to the general company files, and everything new folder-wise, etc., that's added in there, they've got access to. But you can still, in that same area, create additional folders that they can both see the folders, they can see the folder names, but they don't actually have a permission over the network to access them, right? And truth be told, if they logged in as John or Mary on the server, because they do have user accounts on the server, because they're standard accounts, right? They will still not have access to those folders, right? They will not be able to get into the folders that they're blocked from, right? And they will not, as standard users, be able to change those permissions on the server. So hopefully that level of security, as demonstrated here, is sufficient for your needs. And hopefully being able to do all of this with just a collection of Windows 10 Pro machines, instead of going out and getting a full-fledged expensive server running, Microsoft Server 2019 or what have you. This can save you a lot of money and give you still enough fine control over who sees what. Don't hesitate to leave comments below, etc. Thank you for watching.